We're going till 2? Or one, it's an hour, so half hour, then half hour Q&A.
And then,
Half hour Q&A.
yeah.
Okay, you got
All
it.
right, hello everyone. This is part of the Vermont WILPF Gathering 2024. We're a small group in here today, but we're on the subject of education, and we're delighted to have Michael Ippolito with us, and because I've known him from maybe 10 years ago when WILPF and Michael were very involved in communication and trying to teach us how to use Facebook and all of the other esoteric ways of communicating with people. And he is a master at all of that. He lives in Boston, and so we don't often see him and see his face. And so it's a delightful opportunity. He's come up here to Vermont, and we've all noticed one thing about him, and that his thumb is all in a bandage. So he's going to talk about his thumb, about his relationship with WILPF and maybe with the Occupy movement before that, and we hope you will enjoy this conversation.
Thank you so much, Robin. I appreciate that, and thank you all for having me. It was wonderful. John, pleasure. And Virginia, one of our Boston branch members. Max, nice meeting you recently. Jerome, give a shout out to the guy behind the camera. Thank you so much. And so the thumbs happened. We had this great presentation earlier today at the Rochester Library. We had Glenn and his two sons, Elijah and Jesse, who gave an outstanding presentation of their work that they did with regards to, in South Africa and Rwanda, musicals in Rwanda to try to get the folks to engage, and, Glenn's message about, music and the importance of music, which is so profound. What you said, Glenn, about the heartbeat, that's pre-language, that beat, that really hit. And, Elijah being an administrator at the James Baldwin School in New York that he helped start. Very excellent presentation. So afterwards I was talking with them, came back here before I came to speak. I went in my bag because on the ride over, I got a hangnail. And so when I went in my bag to grab a nail file just to, get the hangnail, my shaving razor cut me, double dose. And so, and here we are. So that is the elephant in the room addressed. As you all mentioned about elephants, the matriarchal elephant influence that you talked about.
We need more of them.
We need more. The female elephant runs, as you said, the family, and you were talking about that hope that maybe something like that's happening in the world. And that actually brings me over here because Robin, like you might say, and I say this with, because no one must be called an elephant maybe, but she's a wonderful female elephant example of that, as, a matriarch in WILPF, as well as in the world. So that's, elephants actually play prominent in the story of me. And so I'll get to that. And so in an introduction about who I am, I think where it all should start, and it'll contextualize, as I said before, Jerome, you started rolling the camera. So, Jesse, I love what you said about kids and how we have to care about kids. So I'm going to put this forward to you. You do what you will with it. You can believe what you want, whatever, and it is what it is. I am that guy who just continuity of self, same, can articulate better, and has more facts behind him. Retain all the good from youthful exuberance and that spirit, literally the same. Literally the same person. And so that spirit doesn't really fly well in a world of adults. So in professional environments, you have to kind of button up and be certain ways. What's great about teaching in the classroom is you can let it flow, which I'm doing a little bit more of here, which I don't tend to do around adults, and I'm telling you that story. So just to kind of tell you a little bit and thankfully my parents are still with us, so they can all verify this. So at 18 months, my mother used to take me to this place called the Rainbow Arts Center in Wellesley, Massachusetts, one of the top 8 places in the country to live. You know, and there would be kids up to 12 years old in that, right? And I would be in there, and at the very end of the shows and what have you, the classes, you know, it's like they would theater arts. They'd tell everybody to get in a circle. And my mother, after a few weeks, asked the lady, why is Michael always getting in the middle of the circle? Now, so when I say the continuity of self, like, I remember all this, right? Like, I just remember. I thought everybody remembered. Now, I don't remember everything, you know? Like, it's not my total recall, you know? Important things, you know? Like, what things that were interesting to me. You know, people get really offended if I don't remember something that's important to them.
Okay.
You know? But anyway, so I used to get in the center of the circle. And the woman said, my mother said to the woman, why is Michael always in the middle? And they encouraged that artistic, do whatever you will kind of thing, you know? And let the children just let their spirit shine. And so I would just, when they said get in the circle, I'd get in the middle of the circle. So that was just me, you know, and, you know, when I got potty trained, I was in the bathroom, kind of myself, like, you know, the whole thing, you know, and just kind of like, and then I'm 4 years old, I surprised everybody performing, and then 5 at my cousin's wedding, you know, like the whole thing. There's videotape of this, you know, I got the band, this was back in 1987, they had the wedding bands, and I signed up to sing in the whole thing, and, you know, you can see the video. 5 years old in front of, like, you know, a couple hundred people, 150 people or so, and they start off with blue suede shoes, and they go bump bump. I literally turn around when they stopped, and I was directing the band. Again, like, I remember, you know what I'm saying, like, this is me, right? And I say, no, just keep going, and I perform. So anyway, so I'm in my own world. 4, 5, 6 years old. This is where elephants come in. PBS, the shag carpet, the televisions that are like furniture, and I'm watching Channel 2. And they're destroying the rainforest on PBS, and I'm horrified. And I'm already getting primed because I love trees, kind of like a little hobbit. You know, I love trees. You know, I'm sitting, but if I was standing, hobbit. You know, but anyway. So nevertheless, and I'm already like, oh, in the, you know, old growth forest, and I'm like, why would anyone do this? And all these thoughts are running through my mind. Then it cut to a field. And they were tranquilizing elephants in the field. Now, I had been playing piano since I was 4 years old. I would go to the penthouse at the Four Seasons, friend of my family. And I would play on $125,000 Steinway pianos with ivory keys, not really understanding and conceptualizing that. Ooh. And then they showed this. They had the chainsaws and the elephant and the face and the guys with the flatbed truck grabbing the tusks and throwing them on the flatbed truck. And I melted down. Now, why is this important to understanding 2024? Because from that point forward, it was like, where am I? What is going on in this world that would ever happen? And so part of the volume increase, that's his passion. It's a cultural thing. I'm sorry for the American audience, but people in who are more akin to their cultural roots, particularly in the Mediterranean area, are more expressive. You know.
Okay.
But anyway,
I grew up in an Italian town in Vermont.
Yeah.
Let it rip. Just let it rip.
Thank you, John.
Don't hold back.
If my father was sitting here, he would not introduce me as Italian. He'd introduce me as half Sicilian, half Italian. He's Sicilian.
This is important.
This is very. They have their own flag still. You know, okay, south of the Vatican, you had what you had with racism. You had in Italy because of the Moors invasion. So northern Italians, you had the racists. So here's a linguistics fun fact, if you want to, for the Italians. Babbo is father in Northern Italian. Father is padre in Sicilian. In Sicilian, we're like as far away in Vermont to Boston as like, you know, the Vatican to Sicily, right? Babbo in Sicily means idiot. Right? So, because it was a pushback of the oppression of the lightest skinned, and that even exists in my family dynamic, is the lightest skin, darkest skin kind of like thing. Because my dad, and he's darker, very dark. My mother's very light. Anyway,
Wow.
so this is digression.
All right, so let's get back
Yeah,
to
so-
Boston,
Yeah.
Occupy movement, and
Sure.
and your involvement with WILPF and your services to WILPF. That's
Sure.
wonderful.
Okay, so to speed on up, so as first to go to college in my family, popped out a degree in physics. You know, I was naturally good at math, loved science, wanted to understand the nature of things. Didn't really know that was what I was going to do originally. But I was always searching. I grew up originally from East Boston. That's where the accent comes from for everybody. East Boston and South Boston, that's where the accent. And then it's urban sprawl. That's where the accent is. Anyway, so working class, blue collar family, good people, very intelligent, Renaissance mind, you know. But trying to understand the world. And do you wanna pause for her? Oh, do you wanna keep going?
No, I'm just getting.
I know, because she's coughing, but I didn't know if you wanted to keep going. I just want to be respectful. So, you know, I could tell something was not right. And I didn't know what it was. Because I lived in a lot of worlds that were kind of siloed. So here I am in Brockton, which is an urban community. But I went, see, the local elementary school had 6-foot fences, chain link, and then they had barbed wire, like in South Africa, right? In the townships, like those like barbed wire fences, right? And so that was in Brockton. That was where I would have went to elementary school. And my mother saw that and goes, "He's not going to elementary school there." You know, like, and so I went K through 8 to parochial school. My mother went to parochial school, and my dad went to public school in East Boston. So that was an internal battle in our family. And so, and then 9th grade, I went to Boston College High School, and still trying to figure out things. But then my mother had opened a business when I was 12. And there's a lot of additional things I'll just kind of skim over. I used to do, you know, a lot of performing. That never stopped. And all like theater, acting, modeling, piano, singing, whatever. And so I said to my mother as a teenager, you know, I can go to Brockton High. My first job, I was at a movie theater. And I was working with girls who went to the high school. And it was like, yeah, I thought high school would be like TV because I was a kid watching television. And I didn't know. I thought all teachers were like cared. And that's no disrespect to a lot of the high school teachers that I had that did care. But when I got to Brockton High, I had a terrible experience with a particular math teacher after being award-winning in pretty much every category. The very first year MCAS came out in Massachusetts, I was #1 in the state in Massachusetts. Seriously, it was a big deal in Brockton High School. This was 1998. The results came out the fall, and it was a really, really big deal because our school was last in the state. And the point of all this, because this is going to kind of zoom and then zoom out, I had a math teacher who was the head of the department who never gave out tests or quizzes. There was another kid who was supposed to be the anointed one, white kid in the school. Mother was a teacher, and I was #1 on the math team. They announced me on this, you know, we have the highest scorer, even though we're the lowest average, all this stuff. It didn't count, so a lot of kids didn't try. So who knows if everybody tried, if I would have been the top, but whatever. Anyway, but the bottom line was, it was the first time I failed a math class that didn't have a test or a quiz in it. And I'm the #1 scorer in the state. So that kind of changed the trajectory of my life, because my junior year, I was looking at MIT, Columbia, Cornell, Worcester Polytech, and Harvard. You know, Worcester Polytech was my safety. I wanted to go to MIT. or one of the Ivies, right? And so, because I thought that's what you do, and I was always searching. Robin wants me to talk about like Occupy, so I'm always searching. And then I kind of got derailed there, and because I'm like, again, trying to figure out society. All right, so in my journeys of searching, kind of taking an unconventional path, which I'll spare you because I only have 16 minutes left. I was looking on LimeWire, the thing after Napster, for everybody who is old enough to remember that, or at that kind of ripe age, that like in between Gen X, millennial age, right? But anyway, and so I was ripping everything I could offline with file sharing, great speeches, everything I could get my hands on, trying to understand this world, the world that the 6-year-old was trying to understand, the world I was in. And like I told you all before, it was Noam Chomsky's 90-second lecture, Why Elites Hate Democracy, that first had me say, who's that? Because in it, he talks about this struggle, like how, they always looked at, they being the masses of the world, they later call themselves the masses of the universe, that the public is the great beast. And you have to keep the great beast in the cage, right? And so he goes on at, Walter Lippmann, the media person, who kind of talked about necessary illusions need to be cast upon the people. And that's where to manufacture consent, because the common person is too stupid to rule upon themselves, right? And that's the whole propaganda model of the media that Professor Chomsky came up with and the whole thing. So as I told you all, I was immersed myself in understanding Professor Chomsky. And, in 2005, the spring of 2005, MIT had an open Chomsky lecture series. So the first time I went, after listening to him, I asked a question at the very end. And, I was very passionate, thinking I was going to get the room to yes, and let's get behind what he's saying. And I was totally, went behind the ears ignorant to what, Anyway. And so Chomsky mentioned my tone, Dono, and that's not. And I'm like, okay. So after the event, I went up, we talked with him. He was fascinated that I was studying physics. And I told him about the plans for the work in South Africa. And so he wanted me to stay in touch with him about the work I was doing to teach and do research of teaching in South Africa. So anyway, the next time there was a lecture, I asked a much better question appropriately. And the question I asked had to do with, it was actually a friend of mine who comes from a very, we were going to be Marines together after Brockton High School. I was going to take a hill or die trying, because that's what Brockton High did to me. Brockton High is still a recruiting zone for the military these days. I want to give students as little options as possible, except for the few anointed ones. And then everybody else, be part of, systemic oppression and go to the military. And I know a lot of people in Brockton would be critical of that, because there are a lot of amazing people in Brockton, amazing teachers, a lot of people, but come on, inequity, for real. And we can be better. But anyway, so that's to say the least. So I asked the question that my friend had, and just to give him credit, because it wasn't mine, and Chomsky complimented it, it's on MIT's archive, that I said, what would happen if the United States started to engage in full-on peace? And we wrote up in the UN, because he had this the first long-form lecture I ever listened to Professor Chomsky, which I listened to literally hundreds of times, is Case Studies in Hypocrisy. I don't care if you have a PhD or you're a junior high student, listen to that a lot, over and over. Because whenever you listen to Chomsky, front to back, he kind of builds his whole thing to the very end. So when you listen again, you can kind of branch off to how you know it, and has a lot of words. I had a dictionary and a U.S. history book, because I didn't know. This is before Google was what we don't Google to be. And so I asked him, what would prevent a country like China or Russia from, becoming the military powerhouse like the United States is? And, and if the United States were to start transitioning to a peace economy, essentially, although I didn't use those words exactly. It's kind of, And he said, the forms exist. You just need to be able to have those forms function, essentially. You know, and like with like Russia going into Ukraine, there should have been like international coalition of peace. Stop that. To just, you know, peacekeeping, but actual peacekeeping, not aggressive actions that are Orwellian peacekeeping. You know, and for anybody who doesn't know Orwellian, that means doublespeak when words mean their opposite. Like war is peace, ignorance is slavery, ignorance is strength, freedom is slavery. Pardon me, and I shall be better. Anyway, so the work with Professor Chomsky and a whole bunch of other things, and there were some, before, in 2005, I was supposed to be in South Africa. I failed at getting the grant that I had written. Shout out to Dr. Ruth Farah, the late, great Dr. Ruth Farah. And we didn't get it that year. I did unexpected work in this country. That's a whole digression I won't get into. But the following year, we got the grant for 5 times the funding, and it was we were really trying to do capacity building, but it was a research grant. So we were researching the challenges that teachers face while teaching in a rural setting of South Africa, and doing capacity building and such. And it was great. And then that built up to, we were going to have that graduate program I mentioned, and Jesse mentioned that to you earlier. It was and also to you, Elijah. It was in education and development, developing communities around education. Because I don't care how good a school is, it matters the community that the young people exist within and what's going on. And our society, more than anything, is siloed in every aspect. And that's not by accident. That's social design of neoliberalism. That's actually, Robert McKenzie writes the preface to Profit Over People in Chomsky's book, Profit Over People, and that's literally the ideology of neoliberalism, to compartmentalize society and turn citizens into consumers. And Victor Lebeau, in the 1950s, economist, has a great quote about wanting our spiritual satisfaction, ego satisfaction over the consumption of goods. And once they started to ramp that up, the post-war economy to be in perpetuity, that never ended, and you saw the happiness index in the United States start to plummet at that point because we were trying to get our stuff. Anyway, so all of this work, when I ended up having, 2008, there was a colloquia, South Africa. Actually interesting, the challenges in South Africa are the same challenges here. Like within education, why do they always change? Like, you know, for the folks in education, they know, like it takes about 10 years to get like Head Start, you know, No Child Left Behind, Race to the Top. Why every time do they keep changing that? And they keep changing that because when you're rolling out these big initiatives, you need to always have things in a flux because education is the front lines of controlling any free society. Hey Florida, how you doing? Rosa Parks, what? So, anyway, and pardon, by the way, if anybody with the speech, I always say to my students, I'm sorry for any listeners who are finding it hard to follow in time with the rhymes going like this. And this isn't a professional presentation. This is, as John would say, letting the passion flow. So I had, Chomsky and I had the privilege of being able to meet up with him at MIT, and one of the times we were looking at the MIT climate study and the social implications of the MIT climate study. That was one of many things that we talked about because I had a whole bunch of stuff, and and it's really interesting when you top of shelf is all math books. And a great thing that happened at the end of that meeting was that a sociology professor was saying to Professor Chomsky, saying to me about Professor Chomsky, what's Chomsky doing talking about sociology? And Chomsky came back and said, you know, it's interesting. When I lecture on mathematics, no one ever questions my credentials. and I have none, he goes. I'll lecture at Harvard in mathematics, no one questions. But in the fields, like, so the softer fields, that you need to get properly accredited. And Howard Zinn kind of champions that. Like, what was the difference of history in junior high and graduate school? You know, they had footnotes, you know, like the same story, right? That's Howard Zinn's People's History of the United States. So the work on the climate study, that was really horrifying. And that's what really launched me to go around talking after weeks of trying to find a hidden variable in the horror, because how bad it is, which is a whole lecture unto itself. They're already online, so you can see the global ecological collapse happening now and the way forward if you go on YouTube. Global ecological collapse happening now and the way forward. It's already on YouTube, right? It's like a shortened TED Talk length because it was like an hour and a half and they cut it down. I can kind of roll if you didn't notice. But anyway, so the thing was the 2009 climate study, the most comprehensive, more so than the IPCC study, was the fact that in that time they didn't include the methane, and Chomsky was particularly like horrified about the methane that's increasing by a factor of 10. And this is really important to say at this particular junction. So neoliberalism, which we talked about already, I'm going to do a Venn diagram, air Venn diagram. So post-World War II war economy, you have the UN Charter and you have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Great forms. They don't function because the Bretton Woods economic system was supposed to put guardrails on billionaires, bankers, and big corporations from having capital flight and such. So that led to, amongst other things, it was a lot of things, and we don't have time to go in all the structural things, but corporate constitutional rights, control of the monetary system with international bankers instead of Congress, Article 1, Section 8, like Abraham Lincoln was the last one to print greenbacks. That's a big deal. The monetary system, that's the center of power, and then corporate constitutional rights kind of allowed for the media consolidation. That's why the 1850s were like the era when people knew the most, because you go to a tavern, not be literate, but you know, it's like Red Sox Yankees. You don't have to have seen the game to talk about what you think of the players. And if someone says the score is 7-3, Red Sox won, and someone says no, the Yankees beat them 10-0, well, enough people are going to corroborate the facts. If only that were true in our world, but yet big tech has allowed media silos. And again, a connection to South Africa. Like you have these South African players, you know, and you know, if you look into it, there's a lot. I won't name names, but look into these big tech folks, and it's so, because it's not like in South Africa when the South African Revolution was won, and I can talk a little bit more about that as well. I mentioned it to you guys after the talk. It's not like the racists just went away, those core group of racists. Just like in the United States when slavery ended, it's not like that everybody's like, okay, we're going to embrace everybody. So now it seems like what's going on in our society is like the white, the supremacist crazies of South Africa, red hat cracker crazies, yeah, shame. But anyway, so, you know, it's inequity. You know, and like, how dare you? We're one human race. You want to know science? Here's a fun little quick thing. You know, there's 11 billion miles of DNA that each one of us make up. It's literally a universe. 11 billion miles. That's 61 round trips to the sun and back of DNA. You, me, and every single person. That's how amazing each one of us are. To build us from the vacuum of space. And atom for atom, we are the same. We are the same, not just like some of those trips, but the first, not 10, 20, 30, 40 trips, 50 round trips, 60 round trips. We're the same atom for atom. It's on the 60, that's 93 million miles one way, by the way, 93 million back. So that's 186 million miles. We're the same 60 times. And then on the way back, we're the same again. All the way, 10 million miles, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 million miles, still the same. Atom for atom. What are we othering? When you other, you're othering yourself. What do you hate about you? And this is like a message to every young person, big, older person. Get out identities and all that, everything. Like, we're all one people, one race, one planet. If you don't know Carl Sagan, understand him, please. And his 1985 address to Congress, physicists. A demon-haunted world, candle in the dark. Like, you know, it's really important. And so, this is why we at WILPF work on transferring from a war to a peace economy. Robin, I'm sorry I didn't touch on. I brought real quick cliff notes, brought Chomsky to Bridgewater afterwards. He spoke at Bridgewater. That was in February of 2011. We did some stuff too. That was at the time of the Arab Spring and the Wisconsin wave. And then that predated the Occupy push in September of September 17th, 2011. A lot of amazing people there in Occupy, and then we had the People's Climate March in 2014. What really, I understood the control of the messaging in Occupy, like how the media could do that after several weeks, but what really stunned me personally was when, as one of the national organizers of the People's Climate March in New York City, like, when we had literally 500,000 people shut down Manhattan, and you can see the aerial shots, Democracy Now!, shout out Amy Goodman, blessings, and thank you for everything you've done and continue to do in service. But like, when you see it, and you see the scene we cut from Central Park all the way down to Times Square, and I thought I was going to come back, I know it's time, I thought we were going to come back and be like, yeah, the United Nations was there, you had people like Leonardo DiCaprio, came back to Boston, and maybe at the time 2 out of 100 people heard it happened. Now it's maybe 1 out of 500 heard it even happen, nothing about it barely. And what I was trying to do the night before the event, the Green Party had this like big event, and Naomi Klein spoke at it, shock doctrine and such. And she gave this speech, and she said, "This time we ask for action, next time we ask for everything." And I was quickly critical, went to a Starbucks and was writing her I couldn't get her email. I talked to Professor John, I can't get Naomi Klein's email, I'm sorry, I guess that's too far, I don't know, at the time. But 2 weeks later, she said what I was writing. Because the whole thing was, I was saying, and it's not a silver bullet, but I was saying how powerful it would have been at that time. We had 7 banners in the march to say, no, this time we're advocating for the 28th Amendment to the Constitution and say corporations are not people, money's not speech, and campaign finance can be legislated on the federal, state, and local level. That's not the magic bullet, but that's the first step toward the social transformation we want to see. And what was really interesting is years later at the Left Forum, I was talking with some Black Lives Matter folks, and a woman was saying to me, and shout out to John Baraka, the Black Alliance of Peace, I appreciate all the work I've ever done with y'all, and the Black Agenda Report, that's, red hat cracker crazies, go have a good time with that, but like try to spit on facts. You know what we can actually do nowadays? See this video? We can actually have the independently verifiable facts coming on the screen. We can actually have people participatory budgeting. Like we can have that happen locally, statewide, nationally. We have the tools, we have the resources, we have the ability to effectively communicate. We need more democracy, not less of it. We don't need the neo-Gilded Age. Billionaires, bankers, and big corporations. We need a transition from like a war economy to a peace economy. And you know how we do that? Anybody who says about terraforming Mars either supports power or like is ignorant to how big space is and how much that would be. It's insane. You want to do something? Do what Frank Schumann was doing. Glenn, I mentioned this to you earlier. Before World War I even started, you start terraforming the Sahara Desert. Terraform the deserts of the planet. Sahara Desert's the size of the continental United States. Here's our generational, planetary, go to the moon moment. You know what it is? Terraforming the deserts of Earth. And I know, please, somebody who's gonna, be concerned about that desert lizard or this or that. Terraforming the deserts of the Earth. All those trees are made of carbon, you get it out of the atmosphere. Hey, you know what? You want equity? How about fresh water for everybody? Oh, those sea levels are rising. Hey, Florida, you might care about that, especially Miami on a sunny day now, wink, wink. So, what we can do, those oil pipelines, how about we replace them with massive water pipelines? Because when you're generating electricity on a scale like Frank Schumann, at the time it was 150 by 150 square, it was published, that would have powered the planet. Just that. And I'm not saying it's the only solution, but maybe it's a good start, right? We could terraform Death Valley. What's that doing? Oh no, we have to keep it. For what? That's a great place for solar thermal technology. Sun comes in, hits a mirror, turns water into steam. How you doing? And by the way, that's distilled water. So you can run electric pumps to have the water go into pipelines. And so like the Ogallala Aquifer, you can refill it. All the aquifers of California, you can refill. The Aral Sea, which is actually a lake. If you see the before and afters of the Aral Sea, you have this big, big thing, and then it's a little thing. Okay, well you could refill that, and you could have the pumps constantly going, so you could have an abundance of fresh water. I believe it's Lake Victoria in Africa, right? And we have, that's being used, pumped dry to grow crops, flowers for Europe. Okay, well, we can grow flowers for Europe and grow food for the locals. We can have abundance of water. We can have water towers so everybody has solid water pressure. We know a presidential candidate who likes solid water pressure, talks about it a lot. Maybe we, So the whole idea is you could lower sea level. You get carbon out of the atmosphere. That's a very positive thing. Abundance of water. That's a good start. And that's a way to transition. You can have you want to have an army? Have an army of plumbers. We need a 21st century infrastructure in the United States. Maybe we could start there. You want to get a job? You get everybody, America. Okay, do it to America. And then do it to the rest of the world. We can outsource our jobs. Let's see, you're China, you want to compete with us? Great. Let's outsource really good plumbing for the world. So everybody has clean water. You want peace? Hey, war on terror, question mark. War on terror, question mark. Google it. Chomsky's lecture at Harvard University, war on terror, question mark. Why is the United States the leading supporter of state-sponsored terror? Wait a minute, what? Selling weapons to who? Oh, so we sell the grade A weapons to Israel, and then we sell Saudi Arabia a bunch of grade B weapons. So Israel has a bunch of targets, so Saudi Arabia can distribute the weapons. What does Chomsky say in the lecture? If you want to stop terror, maybe stop participating in it. You're the one supplying the weapons. But wait a minute, the weapon manufacturers, that's the economy. Look at how much that's the economy. Well, the economy can be green sustainability. But if we do that and everybody has, the ability to actually live their lives, now we don't have inequality and, a hierarchical society. Let's flatten society. It's gonna be fine. It's okay, rich people. And honestly, speaking particularly to those really, really, really well-off folks, stop with your daddy and trying to control people more than him. Seriously, get a hobby, live your life, love somebody, be loved. When you're on your deathbed, you're not gonna care about that. You're gonna care about how much you loved and how much you were loved. And all those memories. We're one people, one race, one planet. Check out Carl Sagan. Seriously, great dude, and thank you so much. TPNW, Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. We got 93 countries that signed on. 93 and counting. United States, it's going to be a while till they sign on. They don't sign on to treaties like that, like cluster munitions, landmines. We're like, nah, we don't sign on those. We only structured the whole United Nations and led the way. Thank you, Eleanor Roosevelt. Powerful woman. Thank you, Eleanor Roosevelt. Thank you, Eleanor Roosevelt, for helping WILPF. And so just to talk a little bit about WILPF, because WILPF's an incredible organization.
Yeah.
And everybody should be a part of it. Be a WILPFer because it's Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. Why wouldn't you want to be a part of that? How do you join? $35. I know, dues-paying organization. These are beautiful. See these? You get 2 of these every year. It's outstanding. And if $35 is too much, contact us. We'll work, we'll try to see what we can do. I say that informally. I'll try to see what I can do, okay? But the thing is, WILPF was founded in 1915 with the idea that if women were united around the world and for peace, that could help bring that. And and Jane Addams, our founder, who founded the Hull House, an orphanage Hull House. Shout out to the Home for the Wanderers, in New England. Sorry about you guys prioritizing money over the students. $160,000 per student. Remember, you had to wait to get them replaced before that's another story. But anyway, she founded the orphanage, the Hull House. She was a co-founder of the ACLU, the NAACP, and WILPF. Busy lady. Eleanor Roosevelt helped to have WILPF have what's called consultative status in the United Nations. We enjoy that. We have some WILPF members. Shout out to my first official supervisor in a formal role in WILPF, Barbara Nielsen. And when she talks about WILPF, she's like, how I'm talking now is Barbara Nielsen talking about WILPF. Barbara, you got a mega mind blessings, And before, so what had happened within Occupy is I became part of something called Inner Occupy, where we helped communication within the within Occupy. And I was Jill Stein's Global Climate Convergence was the first thing we ever did that wasn't an Occupy project. And that was a big deal for Occupy. We had to navigate that. And then we helped lots of organizations. I believe it was around 13 to 1,400 different organizations we hosted calls for and all these different things and what have you. I was the second national gathering of Occupy in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I was one of the organizers, the Environmental Day. And what's really important about that is it's just a quick digression. Chomsky even endorsed, we passed, the only thing in a national gathering was the We the People Amendment to say the corporations not people, money's not speech, campaign finance can be regulated. But as I digressed about the Black Agenda Report and the Black Alliance of Peace when I talked at the Left Forum, this wonderful African-American woman said to me, she said, we don't need more laws. They don't follow the laws as they are now. And I didn't really understand that then, but when you see what the Supreme Court's doing, right? So just to come up with this track, so WILPF has international, then we have sections. We have a section is like a nation. We have over 50 nations, part of WILPF. Pakistani women are risking their lives to be a part of WILPF. It's growing the fastest on the continent of Africa with young women. And then we have right around 40 branches in the United States. And we really need an infusion of energy. And so what I said about a WILPF and, I'll get to that and I'll conclude with that. And I promise I will conclude in 3 minutes. I'm going to set my watch. So coming up to now, as we so Ellen Thomas, amazing woman, spent 18 years camped out in front of the White House to end the nuclear era, works with Robin. They're part of the Disarmament and Wars Committee, the most active committee in WILPF. And I shouldn't say, it's because, and that's no disrespect to any other the committees, it's just because we rally around Hiroshima and Nagasaki and those events, those bombings never happening again. It just happened, right? Next year is going to be the 80th anniversary, right? And hopefully we can have an 80th celebration of peace, like a world peace summit, peace power, unite, like coming together, peace power now, as we fight the next fascist rise. But truly, right? So we got the third Nobel Peace Prize in December 2017 as part of the ICAN Coalition, International Coalition for the Abolition of Nuclear Weapons. International Coalition for the Abolition of Nuclear Weapons. WILPF was a part of that. Some amazing women led that, okay? And that was just legislation at the time, but international treaty. January 2021, that became international law when 50 nation states signed on. It only is applicable for the countries that sign on. Now there's 93. Other important facts very quickly as we talk about transitioning. For every dollar that's budgeted for the Pentagon DOD, $2 is spent. So if you want some money, folks, that's amounts to $1.25 trillion every year for the last 25 years on average. You can check out our call for peace about that. I only have another minute. And also, just quick, a wealth tax in the United States generates on $275 million. That's a 2% tax, everybody, $50 million to $999 million, and then a 3% tax on their total wealth if it goes over $1 billion. Whee! That's $275 billion a year. And $240 billion is the Wall Street speculation tax. Why aren't these getting done? Oh, that's right, billionaires, bankers, big corporations. So be a WILPF and. See what we're doing? We work on every issue. If there's an issue that we don't work on, have 5 people in different geographic regions work with you. You can start an issue committee around that issue. Male, female, non-gender specific. However, you be a WILPF and. Do what you do. Be a WILPF as well. And let's all collectively and effectively communicate to be able to pull in the same direction as one humanity, one people, one planet, one race, the human race, scientific, look it up, stop with fake science and othering. There is no othering. And by the way, with my 5 seconds, quantum electrodynamics, space-time, yeah, unified, one piece.
All right. Well, it's amazing you watch the watch at a certain point of time. Are there questions people have here for Michael? He's covered a vast range of territory, subjects.
Is Kamala Harris a WILPF?
Not yet.
Not yet. Could she be?
Well, and are Wilfers for Kamala Harris? I think that's also a question.
You know-
Because until she clarifies her position on Gaza, I would say she doesn't have me yet.
Got
I
it.
don't know about others.
I'm imagining people want me to comment on that. And I would say it's very exciting and uplifting at this particular junction in our society to have what's going on happening. Is everything on any side ever right? 100%? No. And just to qualify myself, yeah, I'm not really into political parties. I don't even, I think they're a relic personally of the past. And like, I think there's enough communication methods that we can dissolve them and just look at people and their positions. But that would involve those citizens engaging more in their duties of citizenship. And that's part of the problem. People don't do their homework, and it's a lot easier to follow a cult leader than do your homework and understand science. Tribal thinking. Tribal thinking. So, you know, that's built into our structure. So are you going to be a super chimpanzee with clothes and devices and pretend like you actually communicate when like you lack maybe a deeper reflection? Or this is talking to those red hat cracker crazies, not everybody. And I'm going to get back to Kamala, and I'll do it in 90 seconds. Or you want to be a super version of yourself, like a super you, a superhuman being. You know, what's that? That's someone who isn't impulsed in the present moment and actually consciously reflects on being. Right? So, with that, I'll just say I don't know what it is to be someone who has darker skin or someone who is female, and to ascend in the ranks politically. I can't imagine that to do that you would be successful if you were more if you were against, as Eisenhower would say, Republican who said every politician worthy of office should be a New Deal politician, Eisenhower. Mm-hmm. And by the way, popular resistance, controlled opposition. You can check that out. By the way, Margaret, just a shout out to Margaret Flowers and Kevin Zees, the late great Kevin Zees. If the world was right side up, blessings to y'all. Thank you, Kevin, Margaret, for what y'all do. Popular resistance works in tandem with the Black Agenda Report and Black Alliance for Peace. Look, I'm going to take a phrase from an organizer activist I worked with for years in Wisconsin. Perfect's the enemy of good. That's 90 seconds, and I am not sanctioning anything. I'm just saying, let's get this done, and then let's actualize what we all want to see.
All right, anyone else either have a opinion about Kamala Harris or about what Michael has been talking about?
I think that the new nominee for the vice president would be more likely to join WILPF than Kamala would, but maybe she would afterwards. I think, seriously, because now I'm saying to myself, why haven't I kept active? And Michael's made me feel like, you know, I've missed out. And,
There's still time.
When I feel bored, I could be listening to Chomsky, and I know he's interesting. I might not understand a lot that he says, but I think this is very powerful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the example of the, what is it, the DNA, or what is it?
11 billion miles in every human.
Right. How is it all connected in the body?
Oh no, it's all in every cell. So if you have
Every cell.
every
Right in
cell,
there.
if you were to take, so it's really coiled up.
Oh, I
And if
see.
you were to take the coiling and uncoil it, it's about on average 6 to 8 feet
I
of
see.
DNA per cell.
I
And you have
see.
hundreds. It's actually a fun math calculation when you're making like math applicable in school,
Yeah.
because you take and you work with like powers of 10, things like that, big
Yeah, I think
numbers.
that's fascinating.
You go 6 to 8 feet times hundreds of trillions of cells,
Mhm.
and then you get an amount of feet, and then you divide that by 5,280 feet in a mile, and then you know how many miles it is to the sun, 93 million miles,
Yeah.
and you can do the round trips. It's 61 round trips of DNA. It's 11 billion miles. So when anybody is body shaming, all you young people out there with the apps, get the screen time, put it away. Seriously, I don't mean to sound old, but like live your life. Don't look at it through a screen. I know someone will have a camera. Like, see, there's a Jerome somewhere with a camera. We'll try to capture it, but try to live it. You know what I'm saying? Like, anyway. But we're all amazing, and you don't need filters, and you don't need all these things, because we're really amazing. 11 billion miles of DNA, and what only separates us is that last 9.3 million miles. That's it. That's not a lot, right? So, Earth, Sun. 61 times. The first 6.5 trips? 6.5 trips to the sun and back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, back to the sun. That's 6.5. That's every one of us have exactly the same DNA. It's all viral. It's the information from 2.5 billion years of evolution to heal virus, to survive viruses, and it's in us.
So in other words, WILF members and non-WILF members have the same number of...
I love that. That was great. I love that. That was
Yeah.
great, Rob.
Okay, just trying to make a
Yeah.
transition here. Any other questions? And I think then we might, in the video.
Well, go ahead.
I wonder if you'd like to comment on Sotomayor's dissent of the latest Supreme Court decision which would free presidents from any type of liability in terms of what they supposedly did while they were making an official act as president.
Yes.
Immunity is the word, isn't it?
Immunity is the word.
Immunity.
Okay, so I'm gonna do that really quickly, and I'm gonna dovetail it in with what Jesse said about Kamala Harris, because I didn't directly answer that question for this reason, right? So, big circle, okay? This is neoliberalism. I'm gonna do abbreviations, and sorry for my thumb. This is a Venn diagram, okay? I'm just gonna do neolib, okay? So this is post-war economy, neoliberalism, after the Bretton Woods economic system was undermined. This really was this is along with corporate constitutional rights and the monetary system. Wait, the end the Fed thing, have money not be debt-based, just have it be a medium of exchange. Yeah, you can do that. Oops. You can do that. You can do that. Seriously, that's how Abraham Lincoln won the Civil War. All right, so neoliberalism. Late stage neoliberalism devolves into neo-fascism. All right, so neoliberalism. This is your Clintons. This is Obama. And no disrespect, Obama was compared to but when you hear him talk, you understood he was neoliberal, right? And no disrespect, Biden, you've done good things, but you're neoliberal, right? And so, but inside of this, you have neocon. Okay, and if you go, sorry, I'm con, okay? So go to the Wayback Machine, go Project for a New American Century. This is your George Bush, George W., Dick Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld. They wrote what they wanted to do with controlling the oil. They had their whole plan so the business world could get ready to mobilize, to take over, and as Chomsky mentions, we need not rehearse the reasons why the United States wants to control Gulf oil. It's sufficient enough to quote the State Department in 1945 that the resources of that region are of a stupendous strategic interest for U.S. to control. And so what have we done? I might have got a few words off on that, but that's I'd say 70% accurate or more. But nevertheless, for a quote, the whole thing is like you destabilize the region with like overthrowing governments and such, and then you can take over resources. That's neoliberalism, right? Our stuff on your land and your people work for us at minimal costs, so we can have a hierarchical system of haves and have-nots. And by the way, it's not about like race. It's not about any of that. Look at England. There was times when certain alcohols were illegal when other alcohols weren't, because the poor liked that alcohol and the rich drank the other. And it's the English to the English. It's like white on white crime right there, right? Come on, it's as white as you get. Those are the bleached, right? Like, and I'm joking about that because I usually say bleached is a mentality of supporting this. So no disrespect to all English people. Beatles rock, yay. But nevertheless, so check this out, right? And neocon, okay? So now we have neo-fascist, okay? Fascist, right? Late stage neoliberalism devolves into neo-fascism. Venn diagram. So Trump is late stage neoliberalism. So, right? And so we know, without saying any specifics, certain things, but right now we're battling this. They want to get rid of social contract theory of government. And like you said, Jerome, the president has monarch powers, and like big tech. Jon Stewart just recently interviewed Mark Cuban on The Daily Show, right? I think it was like it posted yesterday or something like that. And it was the whole idea. Big tech wants essentially to have like the CEO of America, and that they have the board of directors, right? And so here's the thing. The military, like Eisenhower, military-industrial complex became the military-industrial intelligence complex, right? And so look up things like IQT. I had never heard of that, right? Until like within the last year. And it's like, what is that? Oh, that's the merger of the intelligence community with big tech for like, actualizing things like in 1984, right? And a whole bunch, and I mean, what we have couldn't even have been dreamt with that level of surveillance and microphones everywhere and such. And the other thing is Five Eyes. Look up, Five Eyes just recently came out. That's the intelligence communities of the United States, Canada, Britain, Australia, and New Zealand, right? Like 95% I got for certain I got all those right. But you can check me on Five Eyes. And so, like, okay, so what do we have? Our intelligence versus like the other intelligence, and it's like, yo, we're on planet Earth. We don't, and this was a simple problem I understood as a child. As a child at 6, looking at destruction of rainforest. It's not an infinite resource planet. So you have finite resources, finite space. It's not a trash dump. And can we respect other life and not be such hubris? And that's where women come into play. That male hubris to like dominate and control. And where women like, there's that, because what is nature? That's why we take Mother Nature. And that, and so just as a personal anecdote, and shout out to Mom, thank you, thank you, Mom, for having me. She was awesome. She was, Mom, like, I just appreciate you, Janine. And my 2 grandfathers fought in World War II. And my dad was in the Air Force during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I told you all before this, I was gonna, after my experience at Brockton High School, as a student, I was gonna go in the Marine Corps, take a hill or die trying, right? And then I also, I that didn't end my, looking to, I come from a military family. And always want to serve. How best can I serve, right? Like, what's going on here, right? And that's why I said about the militaries of the world, Eastern and Western civilizations, coming together on places, the go to the moon moment, of like, together we can, come together we will, terraform, forget Mars, terraform our deserts, and put people like Muskie out of business with all his money. Because seriously, like if you're for Mars and all this stuff, and you're trying to, I mean, come on, you're suspect about the white people who ran South Africa. Amandla, Revolution in 4-Part Harmony, the power of music. Music unites people. Madonna's song, music brings the people together. That's such a true statement. like festivals, blessings, Femke, festivals, shout out.
Yeah, okay, well, thank
So-
you. I think we're nearing the end of time here.
We are, and you know, but so to land the plane, and we are right now in a moment, just like my grandfathers fought the fascist rise. One stormed was part of Normandy, and liberated Mauthausen. Fought with Patton at the Battle of the Bulge. The other was at Guadalcanal.
Lovely.
We're right now fighting the next fascist rise. Ironically, almost 80 years. Next year is going to be 80 years. End of World War II. May 8th, it's VE Day, Victory in Europe. It's going to be a celebration. Next summer, WILPF's going to have their International Triennial Congress. And may that be a triennial Congress uniting peace movements around the world. Coming together, be part of WILPF. With the Hibakusha, that's the Japanese word for the survivors of the atomic blasts. Hideku. And I'm sorry if I didn't phonetically get that. Blessings. She just gave a wonderful, powerful, you can go on WILPF and see Hideku's address. She was a little girl, survivor, the blast. To come out and see a moonscape. I honestly have tried to I can't even imagine that, and to leave everyone you know, and the whole society gone, and to live your life like that and not have anyone. That is really, that's insanely hard to empathize compassionately with without convulsing. And and so the thing is, so that's 80 years next year, and so peace organizations coming together, like physicists coming out of the labs because you know better. Come on. Just like with the Manhattan Project, there were physicists, they were doing the weapons of war, but they weren't, they had other thoughts too. Physicists used to be engaged in politics. Dr. Kling, you know, we had that argument in 2003, and I didn't mean any disrespect. I was just wet behind the ears. I was learning, you know, you and I, you wonderful now, you know, we're on good, you know. But the idea of responsibility of intellectuals. And I'm just, in September, International Peace Day, and we have 2 weeks. This is something I've been working on with some people. WILPF doesn't, Darian knows, the president of WILPF, Darian DeLue, incredible human being, and I know a lot of people get to know her, talk one-on-one, incredible person, caring, you know, works so hard. So many WILPFers do. What we're trying to do, unite peace. The Triennial Congress for WILPF, the 80th anniversaries of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and then 2 weeks of people coming together, not just for another conference, but local to global. We need good people, regular working class people to engage in the political system, have participatory budgeting on every level, stop pushing back more democracy, exercise our citizenry. I know people, the pleasures of society are so distracting, the distractions. But come together. That's a future we live into. Because now we're fighting the fascists again. And just like you said, Jerome, with the Supreme Court that we can't rely on. Just like the black woman said to me at the Left Forum, we don't need a new law. They don't even follow the laws that exist now. It's true. And, you know, like you said, right now, so that's a step in the direction. Honestly, this is something, I'm going to yield with this, okay? I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but it's something I've been floating around. Is this idea to and I don't know, maybe it'll, look, we need every candidate to be able to have a voice after this election, right? Always. Where you have all the parties be able, ranked choice voting and things access to the debates, a voter bill of rights. These are things that would be really helpful. And there's a really great, Karen McKim in Wisconsin. It's a great way to like count. There's an easy way to paper ballots. You want paper ballots? And you can count really quick in an auditorium with projectors, and there's a way to do it really, really fast. And you can really have great elections, and you have no question about anything. Okay, great, whatever. The thing is that, like, we need that voice. I know we're wrapping to the end, but right now, this is the ta-da. We have to push back on these billionaires, bankers, big corporations, and red hat cracker crazies right now. And like I think that the people who are inspiring this nation right now are doing a really good job. Do I agree with everything? Does anyone ever always agree with everything? But that's what we have to do right now, and then we don't stop. Together we can, together we will. Humanity strong, Earth strong, cosmos strong. Peace, power, blessings.
Well,
Thank
okay,
you.
you can
I did this when I
turn
was a
that
kid.
off.